Hey guys, welcome to the Impact Coaching Cohort Series, Good News for Your Family. Today we are discussing good news for parents of prodigals. When I was 17, my father was so stupid, I didn't want to be seen with him in public. When I was 24, I was amazed at how much the old man had learned in just 7 years. My dad used to repeat that quote from Mark Twain to me at key times when I was an obstinate teenager over the years. Sometimes when we are dealing with a rebellious or prodigal child, we can tend to forget how many of us were also rebellious prodigals at some point in our youth. Have you ever rebelled or turned away from the teaching, values, or faith of your parents or God? When I was 16, my life was headed down a rebellious and dangerous path. Standing in front of a juvenile court judge did nothing to improve my relationship with my parents, let alone earn their trust. Over the years, God straightened me out, and my relationship with my parents was restored and strengthened in beautiful ways. It's normal to make mistakes. But it's essential to remember how we can reflect on our journey to develop empathy for our loved ones who walk away. Today, we are talking to parents of prodigals, and the parable of the prodigal son is one of the most cherished and touching stories in the Bible. Countless fathers and mothers have turned to this familiar tale for comfort, hope, guidance, and wisdom. You may feel like there is no hope for the relationship between you and your wayward child, but remember this powerful quote: "Don't put a period where God has put a comma." The story is not over, and there is still hope for restoration, just like what we read in the parable of the prodigal son. Let's consider a few aspects about this parable of the prodigal son as we try to discover how we can best navigate our own situations with our loved ones who walk away. Firstly, the age of the younger son is unknown, but it seems pretty clear he was a young man who was old enough to believe he was a man, but young enough to foolishly believe he had all the answers. Clearly, the father, who represents God in the story, believed that the younger son was old enough to assume responsibility for his decisions, no matter how reckless they might be. Have you and your wife ever discussed the proper age or stage parents should cease to intervene in their child's life or to enforce discipline or give latitude for decision making? If you think your child needs to grow up and learn the hard way, but your wife wants to coddle, protect, nurture your prodigal, you will struggle to find unity, and you will likely be subject to manipulation by the prodigal child. Remember, a faith that cannot be tested cannot be trusted. Giving your family the space to express doubts, debate, disagree, and explore God for themselves is a healthy part of the process of growing into maturity. Another important aspect of the story is how the father responds to his son's rebellion. The son's attitude towards that father was painful, and his request was costly. In that time, and for many today, this kind of treatment from the son would have resulted in harsh retribution from the father. It's crucial to know that the father did not mistreat his son or communicate that he was no longer welcome in the home. He gave the son his portion of the inheritance, and he let him leave, in spite of the emotional pain and financial toll that it inflicted upon him. The son went out and lived a reckless and foolish lifestyle, and it wasn't long before he hit rock bottom. Meanwhile, The father did not attempt to intervene, but waited patiently, not knowing how his son was doing, or if he would ever return. It turns out that hitting rock bottom is often the level of pain necessary to make someone come to his senses, and this was the case for the son. The son returns, and he experiences the unimaginable. The father is waiting with open arms to forgive and restore his son. Perhaps inspired by this parable, Ernest Hemingway penned a short story titled The Capital of the World. In it, he tells of a young man named Paco who had been kicked out of his home for wrongdoing. Paco became homeless, wandering the streets of Madrid alone. As time passed, Paco's father sought to repair the split between them, but could not find him. So the father took out an ad in the local newspaper saying only, "Paco, meet me at the Hotel Montana at noon on Tuesday. All is forgiven." On Tuesday, 800 men named Paco came to the hotel looking for forgiveness. Forgiveness is the center point of this story. What is fascinating is that the word prodigal has become so synonymous with the rebellious son who returns that most do not realize the word is really talking about the father's response to the son. The meaning of the word prodigal is actually lavish or generous. God offers each of us this lavish and generous forgiveness, and that is the way he wants us to forgive the prodigals in our own lives also. Lastly, let's not forget the older brother. Some kids are rebellious. Others are rule followers. The parable of the prodigal son is really about two sons who have very different relationships with their father. The older brother was obedient and followed the rules, but he missed out on the joy of his father's grace. Be careful not to ignore the older brothers in your family. Do not let the emotional bandwidth you dedicate to your prodigal child create an environment where the hearts of your rule-following children become hardened. Be prepared to share your best verse from Luke 15 as a part of the ABC Bible Study method. Our scripture memory verse is Luke 15:24. "This son of mine was dead and now has returned to life. He was lost, but now he is found." So the party began. Not every story ends in the same way as the parable. Life is messy. The world is broken, and we are all sinners. Yet there is always hope. If you have given up on a family member who has run away, keep praying and keep your eyes on the horizon. Prepare your heart to be tender, your arms to be open, and your feet to be ready to run.